Hey everyone, ready for a deep dive that might just change how you think about money and life?
I'm ready.
Awesome. So today we're exploring this idea of die with zero, and honestly, it's pretty thought-provoking. It kind of flips the script on that whole save for retirement thing that we're all bombarded with,
It
right?
really does.
Like, what if instead of just hoarding cash our whole lives, we actually focused on, enjoying it? Makes you think, huh?
It does.
Our guide for this deep dive is Bill Perkins and his book, Die with Zero, Getting All You Can from Your Money and Your Life. Have you had a chance to check it out yet?
Yeah, I actually finished it last night. It's really fascinating, especially because Perkins, he's not your typical financial guru.
Hmm.
He comes from this background as an engineer and get this, a successful trader.
Oh, wow. So he understands numbers,
Yeah,
but he also gets the whole experience thing, right?
right. Like he's lived a pretty full life himself. So it's not just about the theory for him. He's actually walked the walk.
That's cool. So just to be clear, die with zero, it doesn't actually mean we should, be broke when we, you know.
Yeah, no, not at all. It's not about literally dying with an empty bank account.
Okay, good, good. I was a little worried there for a second.
It's more about, how can I put it? It's about being strategic about how you spend your money throughout your life. Like,
Mm-hmm.
how do you maximize those experiences, travel or whatever, and minimize those regrets?
Yeah, that makes sense. It's about making the most of the time we have, right? Because, I mean, none of us know how much time we actually have.
Exactly. And he makes this point that's really stuck with me that every dollar you have, it represents like a piece of your life energy.
Oh, wow. I like that.
Time you can be spending, having fun, building memories, instead of like just grinding away at work, building your bank balance.
It's so true. I mean, think about all those late nights at the office, all those weekends we sacrifice just to earn more money that we're probably not even going to get to enjoy. It really
Right.
makes you question those choices, doesn't it?
Totally. But, it's so easy to get caught in that trap, that save, save, save mentality.
Yeah.
It's practically drilled into us from like childhood.
It really is. It's almost like a default setting for most of us. But Perkins, he's encouraging us to break free from that, right? To think differently.
Exactly. And one of the ways he illustrates this is by telling this story about his friend Jason. So Jason's like in his early 20s and decides he wants to backpack across Europe.
Sounds fun, right?
Oh, yeah, total dream trip.
The thing is, he didn't have the money. So, get this, he ends up borrowing from a loan shark to make it happen.
Whoa, hold on. A loan shark? That seems a bit extreme, even for a dream trip.
Yeah, it was a pretty risky move. Even Perkins admits that. But the point he's making is that experiences, especially when you're young, they offer these invaluable returns, in the
Mhm.
form of memories and personal growth and all that. And for Jason, those were worth the risk. I mean, yeah, memories, those are priceless. But still, going into debt like that, I don't know. Are there ways to fund those kinds of experiences without, jeopardizing your financial future?
Oh, for sure. Perkins definitely acknowledges that Jason's approach was extreme, and he's not advocating for like reckless borrowing or anything.
Mm-hmm.
He even uses this term memory dividends, which I think is kind of cool.
Memory dividends. Okay, explain that.
It's like, yeah, those memories you create, they're not just fleeting things. They actually continue to pay off like long after the event itself. You share those stories with friends, family. They shape your worldview, maybe even influence your career choices down the line. Like it's an investment that keeps on giving.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's like they say you regret the things you don't do more than the things you do. But there's always that voice in the back of your head, the one that whispers, what about retirement? What about the
Oh, I
future?
hear that voice all the time.
Me too. And it's loud. But Perkins, he actually challenges that whole save for the future thing head on.
He does. It's like his whole premise, right?
Yeah.
And he has some like really compelling data to back it up, like studies that show people tend to oversave. They die with all this money they never got to use.
Oh, wow, that's sad. I mean, we work so hard to accumulate wealth, but if we never actually get to enjoy it, what's the point?
That's exactly what Perkins is saying. He gives this like really poignant example of a woman named Elizabeth. This woman, she saved diligently her whole life, working hard, scrimping, doing all the right things, and she passed away with $130,000 left in her account.
Oh, wow.
Perkins did the math, and that's more than 6,600 hours of work that she never got to enjoy the fruits of. Just imagine all the things she could have done with that time, all the experiences she could have had. It's kind of heartbreaking, isn't it?
It is. It really makes you think about what we're all working so hard for.
Right. And, a lot of times that oversaving, it comes from fear of like not having enough for healthcare in old age. But Perkins suggests like exploring other options. Things like long-term care insurance, as an alternative to constantly stockpiling wealth.
That makes sense. It's about finding that balance between enjoying the present and, making sure you're okay in the future. But I'm sure a lot of our listeners are thinking, okay, this all sounds great in theory, but how do I actually put this die with zero thing into practice? Like, where do I even begin?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, right? Well, Perkins, he actually lays out some pretty practical strategies. And the first step, he says, is figuring out your survival threshold.
Survival threshold. Okay, I'm intrigued. What is that exactly?
It's basically the minimum amount of money you need to cover your basic living expenses for, like, the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And this is where things start to get a little more technical.
I'm ready. Hit me with the numbers. Let's break out the calculators and get into the nitty-gritty. Okay, so survival threshold. How do we actually figure that out? I'm guessing it's a little more complicated than just adding up my monthly expenses, right?
Yeah, you're right. It is a bit more complex than that. Like, you got to think about inflation, that thing where prices keep going up over
Oh, yeah,
time.
inflation, the silent wealth killer.
Exactly. And, as you get older, there are those potential healthcare costs, and those can be
I'm
huge.
kidding. Okay, so let's say I've, crunched the numbers and I have some idea of my survival threshold. What's next? Do I just start, spending everything beyond that? YOLO, right?
Hmm. Not so fast.
Yeah.
Perkins, he's all about being strategic with your spending. Remember, he talks about this financial tool. It's called an annuity. You familiar with those?
Annuities. I've heard the word, but honestly, I'm not really sure what they are. Like, are they some super complicated financial thing?
Not really. They're actually pretty straightforward once you wrap your head around them. Think of an annuity like a guaranteed income stream. You basically give a chunk of money to an insurance company, and then they pay you a fixed amount every month or year, whatever you decide, for a certain period of time, sometimes even for the rest of your life.
So it's like a safety net. It protects you from, running out of money before you.
Exactly.
Hmm.
It can provide real peace of mind, especially as you get older. You can be a little more adventurous with your spending without constantly worrying about, am I going to outlive my savings?
Yeah, that makes sense. Less stress, more fun.
Exactly. Perkins even talks about a friend of his who was, like, totally against annuities at first. He thought they were too complicated, too risky.
I can relate to that. I always get a little nervous when it comes to, complex financial stuff.
Yeah. But then his friend realized that annuities could actually give him more freedom to enjoy his money, without that fear hanging over him.
Okay, so annuities? Maybe not as scary as they sound, but still, I think for most of us, we're not financial experts.
Totally. And Perkins is very clear about that. He stresses that it's so important to get advice from a financial professional, someone who knows their stuff.
Okay, so find a good advisor. Got it. But, there are tons of financial advisors out there. How do you find one who, gets this die with zero philosophy?
That's the key, right?
Yeah.
Finding someone who's on the same page as you. And Perkins, he says the goal should be maximizing life enjoyment, not just maximizing wealth, right?
Right. Someone who's on board with helping you create a plan that supports your life goals, not just growing your portfolio at all costs.
Exactly. You want someone who understands that you want to live a full life, not just hoard money for some distant future that may never come.
Totally. Okay, so find a good advisor, check. What else? What are some other key takeaways from the book?
Okay, well, this is where things get really interesting. Perkins talks about this concept of your net worth peak. And he says, instead of thinking about it as a dollar amount, like $1 million or whatever, we should think of it as a date, like a point in time.
A date. Okay, I'm intrigued. So instead of striving for $1 million retirement nest egg, I should be asking myself, when is the best time to start spending down my savings?
You got it. And Perkins, he suggests that for most people, this peak happens somewhere between the ages of 45 and 60.
Okay, so midlife. Why then?
Because generally that's when we have the health and vitality to really enjoy those experiences we've been putting off, travel, adventure, all that good stuff.
That's true. You're going to be backpacking across Europe when you're 80.
Probably not.
Yeah.
So Perkins, he's basically saying, hey, why wait until you're old and gray to enjoy your hard-earned money? Maybe you should be having some of those experiences earlier when you're still young and able-bodied.
Yeah, I like that. It flips the script on how we traditionally think about work and life. Instead of constantly delaying gratification, why not build in some fun along the way?
Exactly. He even suggests, maybe consider phased retirement. Gradually reduce your work hours to free up some time for enjoyment, but you're still earning some income. It's about finding that balance.
Okay, I'm loving this. Less work, more life. But I gotta ask, what about the kids? Is it selfish to, like, spend down our savings and enjoy ourselves if it means leaving less of an inheritance for our children?
That's a great question, and one that a lot of people struggle with, right? But Perkins, he actually flips the script on that too. He asks, what if giving to your children while you're alive actually had a greater impact?
Hmm. So, like, instead of leaving them a big inheritance, we should be helping them out while we're still here.
Exactly. He tells this story about a woman named Virginia. She got a pretty substantial inheritance from her mom, but it came when she was in her late 40s, years after it would have been the most helpful. Like, imagine if that money had been available when she was, raising her kids, trying to buy a house, or just needing some extra support. It could have made a huge difference.
It's true. Sometimes that help is more meaningful when you're younger and, just starting out in life.
Exactly. And Perkins isn't saying you have to, like, give away all your money to your kids right now. It's more about being intentional with your giving,
Hmm.
providing support when it's most needed, and, like, actually being able to see the positive impact it has.
Yeah, I get that. It's not about cutting your kids out of the picture entirely. It's just about being more thoughtful about when and how you help them out.
Right. And Perkins also encourages us to think beyond just our immediate family. Like, what about giving to charities and causes we're passionate about?
That's a good point. It's all about spreading the love, right?
Exactly. And, he highlights this billionaire, Chuck Feeney. Have you heard of him?
Chuck Feeney, the name rings a bell.
He's dedicated his life to giving away his entire fortune while he's still alive. He's focused on causes he really cares about, and it's been incredibly impactful.
Wow, that's inspiring. It's like that saying, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. We don't have to wait till we're gone to make a difference, right?
Absolutely. And this kind of ties into another big idea from Die with Zero. It's all about being bold, taking risks.
Okay, now we're talking. I love that idea. So, what does Perkins say about taking risks?
Well, he emphasizes the importance of timing again. He says our younger years, where we have more time to bounce back from setbacks, those are the best years to be bold. Like, he tells the story of Mark Cuban, the billionaire entrepreneur.
Oh, yeah, Mark Cuban, big Shark Tank fan.
So Cuban, he started his entrepreneurial journey super early. Like,
Yeah.
when he was 12, he was selling trash bags door to door. By 16, he was buying and reselling stamps for a profit. Talk about hustle.
Wow. He was a born entrepreneur. But I mean, even someone as successful as Mark Cuban, he must have faced some, bumps in the road along the way.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Perkins mentions how Cuban had his campus pub shut down at one point. But even those setbacks, they became valuable lessons. They helped shape his path to success. And that's a key point that Perkins makes. He reminds us that taking calculated risks, especially when you're young, can lead to incredible rewards. He even talks about his own experience leaving a safe but unfulfilling job in New York to pursue a risky trading career in Texas.
Really. He just up and moved to Texas.
Yep. It was a big gamble, but it paid off in the end, both financially and in terms of, like, personal satisfaction.
That's a big move, though, right? Like leaving everything, behind to chase a dream. It's inspiring, but I think a lot of us, we get stuck in that fear of failure. That what if it doesn't work out?
Oh, yeah, fear can be paralyzing, right?
Mm.
But Perkins, he actually addresses that head on in the book. He reminds us that even if those bold moves don't, lead to the outcome we had in mind, the experience itself is still valuable. Like, we learn, we grow, we create memories along the way. And sometimes, those quote-unquote failures, they actually open up doors to opportunities we never even imagined.
Like if you hadn't taken that leap, you might not be where you are today.
Exactly. Perkins even talks about how he got fired from an early trading job. And at the time, it felt like a huge setback. But it actually led him to this incredible opportunity that really launched his career.
It's like that saying, fail forward. Like those setbacks, they can actually be like stepping stones.
Yeah, totally. They can guide us toward a more fulfilling path, even if it's not the path we initially set out on. And this actually leads to another really important takeaway from Die with Zero. It's this idea of, like, not living your life on autopilot, you know? Yeah, like, we get so caught up in these societal expectations, right? Like, you should be earning this much by this age. You should have this many kids, this big house, blah, blah, blah. But Perkins, he really urges us to question all of that. Like, do those things actually align with what truly makes you happy?
Yeah, it's about being intentional with our choices, right? Not just blindly following some predetermined script that society has handed us.
Exactly. It's about tuning out all the noise and figure out what actually matters to you as an individual. And he has this cool exercise in the book. It's called time bucketing.
Yeah.
Basically divide your life into like 5 or 10 year intervals, and then you think about the experiences you want to have during each of those phases.
Time bucketing, I like that. It's like creating a roadmap for your life, but instead of just focusing on financial milestones, you're mapping out those life-affirming experiences. The travel adventures, the creative pursuits, the quality time with loved ones. Those are the things that truly make a life rich.
Absolutely. And as you're filling in those time buckets, Perkins reminds us that, our capacity for certain experiences, it changes as we age. Like some things, those physically demanding adventures, those are best enjoyed when we're younger and have the health and stamina to really embrace them. But other things like pursuing intellectual passions or just, enjoying those quiet moments with loved ones, those can bring joy throughout our lives.
It's like that bell curve idea we talked about earlier, right? The time buckets for our 20s and 30s, those should be packed. We need to make the most of those years when we're really able to have those kinds of experiences because our time, it is finite.
So true. And this awareness of our mortality, it shouldn't be morbid. Perkins actually argues that it should be a motivator, like a catalyst for living more fully and intentionally. He even created this app. It's called Final Countdown, and it visually displays like the estimated time you have left.
Whoa, that's pretty intense.
It is. But Perkins says it helps him appreciate the preciousness of time and make more conscious choices about how he spends his days. Now, he's not suggesting we all need a countdown clock, but the idea behind it, it's powerful. Recognizing that our time is limited, it can really push us to prioritize those things that truly matter.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive into Die with Zero, what does all of this mean for our listeners? How do we take these ideas and put them into action?
Well, I think it starts with a mindset shift, like moving away from that idea of accumulating wealth as the primary goal. It's about having those honest conversations with yourself and with your loved ones about what really matters to you.
It's about asking those tough questions, right? Like, if I knew I only had a limited number of weekends left, how would I spend them? What experiences would I regret not having?
Yeah, those are great questions to ask. And then it's about taking action, even if it's just small steps at first. Maybe it's booking that trip you've been dreaming of, or finally having that difficult conversation, or just, carving out some time for yourself to pursue a passion you've been neglecting.
Die with Zero, it's so much more than just a financial strategy. It's like a philosophy, a way of life. It's about embracing the present, recognizing that our time is precious, and leaving this world with a heart full of memories and zero regrets.
Beautifully said.
So, as you go about your day, we want you to consider this. If your life were a balance sheet, would you be in the red or the black when it comes to those truly life-affirming experiences?
That's a powerful image.
It is, right. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Die with Zero. We hope it's given you some food for thought and inspired you to make the most of this one precious life. Until next time, keep seeking, keep exploring, and keep living with intention.